us. Yes, ma'am.
Namaste. This is Swami Atmashraddhananda from Ramakrishna Mission Ashram, Kanpur, in Uttar Pradesh. I'm very glad and I'm grateful to Vidyamandira, Sharda Peeth, Belur Mutt, for inviting me to share a few thoughts, a few ideas on stress management. I understand that they are conducting a series of lectures, online lectures, in order to deal with this subject, a subject which is of great importance in today's context. So I'll be spending a few minutes with you, next an hour or so, on the subject of stress management, a spiritual perspective. We are in the midst of a very difficult time. We are passing through a very stressful condition throughout the world. It's not just here in India, or let's say Kanpur where I am, or elsewhere, those who are hearing in Howrah or other places in Bengal or other places in India, or even beyond, where we are whom we are addressing. We are passing through a situation which is we hadn't expected. So there are now and then some calls, SOS calls. Even yesterday, I had a call from a gentleman who is a retired army officer, Air Force officer. He was expressing how deeply disturbed he feels because he's stuck up in the lockdown and he's not able to move as he wished to move his whole family to another place to which a place to which he was to go, to which he belongs to. Besides this, there are also other issues related with stress. We always have stress in our life, even when there is no pandemic also. Stress is more a part of life now, and there is certain amount of stress which is inbuilt in life. There cannot be a life without stress. So if you look at from a larger angle, when you are a student or when you are working or even when you are retired, there is a certain amount of stress in every stage of life. Stress could mean that we are here to deal with a situation which is stressful, where we have a pressure on our abilities, on our capacities, on our time, on our attention, and we do not know how to deal with it, or we feel rather less capable or running short of some energy, some capacity to deal with it. So there is certain amount of stress which is part of life. As I said, no one can be without any action. Everyone has to have some work, and work means certain amount of stress. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, not even for a small fraction of a second, a person can be without work. And again, in the 18th chapter, he says, it is for one who has a body, which means a living being, it is not possible to give up the work completely. And when you have work, when you have life, when you have things going on, there will be a certain amount of stress that will be happening or that we'll have to experience. So let's say in today's context, we will discuss about stress. So let's say as students, we have the stress. We have a stress like we have to submit an assignment, we have to pass an examination. So recently, I remember a young student sharing his feelings. He said he has in the final year of his graduation, and he was waiting for his exams to happen. He was all ready to prepare. And then suddenly a notification comes, no, because of the pandemic, it has been delayed. So it causes a certain anxiety, a stress. He felt very stressful. Again, after some time, again, when he was to get ready and write his exam, yet another notification comes that it has been delayed. So this kind of situation where a student is indeed under a situation where he feels anxious, oh, when will my exam get over? When I will become free? It is something which is quite understandable. Even as parents or elders at home, there is a certain amount of stress. The stress about life, now what will happen? Now we have the threat to our health, threat to life itself. So what's going to happen? And moreover, if you are given to a lot of listening to the all kinds of media news and discussions on the TV, unfortunately, some of them are very wonderful, but unfortunately, many of them actually can make you very stressful because they paint a very negative picture. They feed your mind with all kinds of negative thoughts. Or you could be either of them. Or you could be also an employee. An employee has his own amount of stress. Whether it is a situation when you are in a lockdown, or whether you are in a normal times, there is stress. Suppose in the normal times you are an employee, you have to reach office on time, you have to finish a particular assignment given to you on time. Traveling itself is a stress in today's world, particularly in our country where there is so much of traffic and such intense population is there. So we have our own stress. And then there is a stress within the office. Certain situations create stress. Stress is all around us. So this deadlines which we have to do, we have to attend. Or there's another thing which creates a lot of stress is our thinking, which says, oh, what will others tell or what will others say if I do this? In Hindi, there is a statement, rather funny but very perfect statement to say this. क्या कहेंगे लोग? सबसे बड़ा है रोग. What will people say? This is itself is a big disease. So you keep listening. Oh, if I do this? What will people say? So if my standard of living comes down, what will people say? If I behave in a particular way, what will people say? If I take this decision, what will people say? No doubt, we have people around us and we cannot completely disregard them. But paying too much attention to people and their opinion and going around with their views itself can be very stressful. I'm reminded of what Emerson is supposed to have said. As you know, Emerson was a great American essayist, and he is supposed to have said that it's easy to live after your opinion when you're all alone. It's easy to live after your opinion when you're all alone. It's also easy to live after others' opinion when you're in a crowd. But what's really demanding and challenging is when you live after your opinion when you're in a crowd. So living in crowd, listening to all kinds of opinion, and yet sticking on to your conviction, that's what he says is very challenging, and that's what is actually the way to real success and happiness. That's one way of looking at it. As we said, there are a lot of problems in life we all face. Even from our childhood onwards, we are facing life. When a little child is born, the process of birth itself is to be very painful. And when he grows up, one of our monks used to say, when he is growing up, then itself he has to attend to a lot of restrictions. So mother says, mother is all worried about his security. So the mother says, don't go this side, don't do this, don't sit here, don't do that. So a lot of don'ts he has to hear. So as he grows up, he wants freedom because he feels sort of stressed up otherwise. And when he grows up and wants his freedom, there are certain amounts of stress, certain restrictions. And because he knows this world consists of limitation. One of the basic principles of economics is that our wants are unlimited, but resources are limited. Our wants are unlimited. How big is the list of our wants, or what we think is our wants? And when we want to fulfill them, we know our resources are limited. Our resources could mean money, and resources could also mean time available to us, our health, our situations in which we can fulfill our desires and properly enjoy. All that is limited. Everything has its own restrictions, its own area of restricting it. So in the midst of this, we have to make proper choices. That's what is said in economics also, that we have to make proper choices as to what you want and which are the wants which you can fulfill, and what are the resources which you can depend on. Sometimes in 1951, there was a gentleman by name Niebuhr, Reinhold Niebuhr, I think he was a German. He wrote a beautiful prayer. And I feel in today's context, this prayer is to be remembered again and again. The prayer is called the Serenity Prayer. If you Google it on the internet, you will find it. There is a prayer called Serenity Prayer, and who wrote it and all that you will find in the Wikipedia also. It's a wonderful prayer. It gives us a very beautiful context or a perspective in which we can look at life. As I said, there are problems in life. There are challenges in life, whether we are as a child or a grown-up or an old man. We all have our own problems. We all have our own issues to solve, our own things to manage. So this prayer can serve as a wonderful guide towards that. Prayer is this. I'll read that to you. The prayer says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. So there are three things here. He says, first of all, O Lord, give me serenity. That I am serene, I am undisturbed, to accept things which I cannot change. For instance, there are so many things of the elements of nature, I cannot change them. The sun rises in the east, I cannot change it. Or it sets in the west, I cannot change it. You know, one of our very senior monks, I remember his name, Swami Buddhanandaji Maharaj. He was the secretary of Ramakrishna Mission, New Delhi in the early 80s, 1980s. So once somebody complained to him, said, Swamiji, it's so hot here. Delhi is so hot, so terribly hot. It's burning. He smiled and said, oh, in the summer, do you think it will be a winter? Grishma Kale, avanaki sheet hoy. So it was a very insightful statement. We expect, when it is hot, we expect heat. And when it is cold, you expect cold. You cannot be spending your time complaining about a thing which is as natural and as normal as it is. So let us accept it. Let us accept that this is what it is. So similarly in lives also, there are many situations. We have to accept it. This acceptance is very difficult. It's very challenging. But once we accept it, then things become easy. I remember having read a statement from a very insightful writer. He used to write on issues, I think his name is Scott Peck. He writes that life is difficult. This is the first statement. Life is difficult. Second statement. Once you accept that life is difficult, life is no more difficult. You have to accept it. So this is what Buddha said 2,500 years ago. What did he say? He said, Sarvam Dukkham. There is dukkha in this world. And in the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra also we find this mentioned. Sarvam Dukkham Vivekinaha. One person who has developed this special kind of thinking called Viveka. He thinks, he sees the dukkha that is there in the limitation of existence. So what's the basic problem of the existence? What is the existential problem from a very philosophical angle? So it is this, that I am here and I am not everywhere. Or let me put this way, you are in your home, you are in your classroom. You are not everywhere. So you have to depend on means to know what's happening elsewhere. And all the means give you very, very limited knowledge. You're not all pervading. That is the problem. Things are not all pervading. There is no perfect equality. Swami Vivekananda in Jnana Yoga, he mentions this. He says, there is no perfect equality ever possible. It is sameness. And perfect sameness is nothing but death. There has to be variety, there has to be differences, then only life goes on. Say, somewhere there is a ditch and somewhere there is a mountain. There are ups and downs. Similarly, somewhere there is abhava and somewhere there is prachuryata. Abhava is there is lack, and somewhere else it is overflowing, it is abundant. It is true in terms of food, it is true in terms of other things. Years ago, could be 30 years ago, I had an occasion to meet a young man who had come from one of the Western countries. And he made a very, he was a young man, could be 18 years old or even less. And I had a conversation with him and I asked him, why you come from your country to our country? Because I had known that he was not alone, there were his friends also. He said, look, in my country and your country, the difference is one very important difference. In your country, you have a lot of issues. In those days, you had the electricity problem, then you have got the water problem. I see sometimes people standing in they queue up in front of a public tap to get water. And I've seen people standing in the ration shops asking for the food ration to be supplied or to be purchased. And there are hundreds of things which are there there's squalor, there is dirt, there is indiscipline. That's what I see in your country. But look at my country. I don't have any problem in our country. We have running water, we have electricity 24/7, and we don't have the dirt and all that. But I tell you, he told me, we have no problem and that is our problem. We have no problem and that's our problem. What to do with life? What he meant was that now he had to rise to a next level of existence. It's not that we should create these problems, transport there and say, okay, you don't have problem, we are giving you some problem, take it. Not that way. There's a next level of thinking, a next level of existence, of contemplation, where we should rise to. That's what he meant. He said that many of our friends, after we finish our schooling, before we join college, we just come and go around to the Middle East or come to the Southeast Asia or Africa and just see how life is. It actually gives us a new perspective about life. So this is what I mean when we say that let's accept things as they are. This is one thing. But then, the second part of the prayer says, may I have the courage to change the things I can. To say that I accept everything as it is and not make any decision or make any effort to change the things this cannot be a human thinking. It cannot be a normal thinking. So I have a courage, I have the ability to make changes. So put it in this way, all of us have got certain choices before us. And the right choices that we make, so we make right changes in our life. Look at all that has happened around us. From the primitive times, that is prehistoric time, to the present times, it has all happened because there are people who have taken a right, who have made a right decision, they made a right choice, and had the courage to fulfill it. Be it change in the science or scientific level. Think of what some scientist has done, or be it in the business model, or be it the change that has happened in our the way we manage our political life. There have been changes right from beginning of the history till now, and many more will happen. So there is a change that is possible for us. There are right choices that we make, and then we have to have a courage to make changes. So unless we make changes in life, we are not human beings. You see, in every human being, there is a desire to grow. There is a desire to progress. Acharya Shankara, in one of his bhashyas in Kathopanishad, mentions this, that all beings are trying to rise higher and higher, higher and higher. They're not satisfied with where they are. So they want some change. Something better should happen. Let's say if a person is at a very, Swami Ranganathananji Maharaj used to say this, suppose there is a person who is a lower division clerk. He wants a promotion. He wants to go to the higher division clerk. And the higher division clerk wants to become an officer. An officer wants to become still something higher in the hierarchy. So there is always a desire to grow up higher and higher. It is also known as the Abhyudaya, desire to grow at the materialistic level. In our scriptures, the Vedantic scriptures, the Hindu scriptures very much accept it. They say, yes, man wants that. And it is acceptable. But they also say that ultimate peace is not to be found only in Abhyudaya. There has to be a third thing other than the serenity to accept the things which I cannot change and the courage to change what I can. The third thing is required, that is wisdom to know the difference. There is the wisdom, what I can change and what I cannot change. This wisdom is what is being prayed for, which we should seek in life. That yes, I have attained certain things and certain things I am yet to attain, but there are certain things which I cannot change. Under no circumstances I will be able to change my weather. For instance, this weather will be what it is, but I can change where I live. I can put on a fan. If I can afford, I can put on a AC. Simple things. Suppose the story is told that people used to walk barefoot. And once a king was walking and a thorn pricked him. He said, this is very bad that in my country there should be thorns like that. So put leather everywhere so that there will be no, where people walk, they will not be hurt. Then somebody said, sir, why you have to put leather everywhere? You cut a small piece and tie it with the soles of your feet. That is how you will find that there will be no difficulty. That is the beginning of the shoe. That's the shoe solution, which means I guard myself from whatever that might happen, which might give me difficulties. So this is this wisdom we have to develop. So this is a serenity prayer which says, let me repeat it again for the sake of our understanding. It says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Now, these are a few things in general I have said about stress and how stressful situations we all face and how we can look at it. Now let's go a little deeper. Having given some idea as to what kind of situation we all find in, let's go a little deeper. Stress or anxiety is deep rooted in life itself. It is deeply rooted in our life structure and in our mindset. We have different situations coming in life, stressful conditions or peaceful conditions or a mix of two. Whatever be the situation in which we find ourselves in, we all have another part of the situation, and that is the inner part. Swami Vivekananda, in his Karma Yoga, he makes a very insightful observation about how misery and pain comes to us. He says, whenever there is misery in life, I find that there is a situation which is causing misery, which is making me very pathetic, feel of a lot of self-pity, a lot of sense of helplessness. This is a situation. But if I study it carefully, I'll find that it's not that just situation which is causing this. It is that I am also responding to that situation. So I have a freedom. I have a certain amount of choice which I can make as to how I respond to that situation. One example Swami Vivekananda gives is this, that there are a lot of viruses in the atmosphere. They can attack me and they can kill me in no time. But it all depends that if I have got a strong immune system, if I have got a resistance power in my body, then no amount of viruses can affect me. Swami Vivekananda makes this statement. He says, I should strengthen my immune system. So there is an external word, there is a word which is not only immune system at the level of body, but at the level of the mind also. There are so many thoughts which may influence me, which may create problems for me, but I can resist it. I can respond, I can decide not to respond to it. We'll give two examples of that. One is Sri Ramakrishna's example. He says that a boat may be in the water, but not water in the boat. Suppose there is a boat and you put it in water, you can row it up if the boat is strong and healthy. But if the boat is weak, it has sprung a hole, then water will enter into through that hole and the boat will be drowned. Sri Ramakrishna says that when we are in the world, let us be in the word, not the word should be inside us. So what is the meaning of word entering into us? The word enters into us means the type of thinking that we have, the mindset we have, the way we look at things, the way we respond to it. Another example, a very commonly quoted example, which speaks of how our reactions matter, our response matters. So in a restaurant, there was a dinner going on. And suddenly one of the ladies discovered that there was a cockroach. Now, she was generally afraid of cockroaches. So the moment she saw a cockroach on her table, she screamed in her full voice, saying, "Oh, there's a cockroach." And she got up with a start, throwing her spoon and plate. And the cockroach got frightened and it flew to the other table. There also a similar reaction took place. And the whole restaurant scene where the dinner was going on, there was a pandemonium. People running here and there and making sound. Just then, a waiter enters the restaurant. He just looks at the whole situation, and this cockroach also happens to fly up and sit on his shoulder. The man looks at him and quietly puts his hand on the cockroach and goes out and throws it away. Now it's the same situation as the cockroach was there with the lady also, but she reacted in a particular way, and it came to the waiter, he reacted in another way. So it's not just the cockroach in itself which would have created a problem. The way you respond to the cockroach that matters. So it is said that there is always a gap between what comes to us and the way we respond to it, which means there is a stimulus and there is a response. There is a stimulus to do something. Say somebody comes and calls you a bad word. Perhaps somebody is called, I know one story, one of our very senior monks used to say about this. So he says there was a man who came to a judge and he had filed a case. What is that? There's another person, he has called him a bad name, so there's a defamation case. So he called, the judge asked the other person, what's the matter? Why you have been, why you have been booked? He said, I called him hippopotamus. Hippopotamus? So this man said, when did he call you as hippopotamus? He said, 1 year ago. He called you 1 year ago, and now you are telling that he has insulted you? He says, because I saw hippopotamus only 2 days back. So he never knew what the hippopotamus is. So he never reacted. The moment he came to know this is the meaning, he reacted. Ramakrishna also tells a similar story. He says, there is this person who was having a shave by a barber. The barber was using his traditional knife, and he was shaving him, and suddenly there was a gash, there was a small slip, and there was a minor injury. So he used the word damn it. Ramakrishna puts it very beautifully. He says, the man heard it for the first time, the one who was getting shaved. He says, what? He asked the barber, what is that you said it? He said, damn it. So tell me the meaning of this. If its meaning is good, if the word damn means good, then I am damn, then my father is damn, my everybody is damn. But if the damn's meaning is bad, you are damn, your people are damn, everybody in your family is damn. In a very funny way, Ramakrishna has told how we respond to a situation. So we have certain freedom to respond in a particular way. This is stimulus comes and the response, how we respond to that. This means that we have to have a certain control over the mind. We have to exercise a certain sense of what Swami Atmashraddhananda calls live like a master, not like a slave. So when we say we live like a master, which means I am not a slave to my own impulse, not a slave to the situations of life. I exercise my own freedom. Not freedom as we understand in terms of the people express freedom to speak whatever they wish, or freedom to do anything wrong. That's not the real meaning of freedom. There also there is slavery. Slavery under the wrong impulses. Slavery under the impulses which are not healthy, which are not human, which are not of higher type. What is said, is it freedom of the senses or freedom from the senses? There is freedom in both sides. Freedom from the senses, which means freedom from the sensory impulses, freedom from all kinds of lower impulses that come in our mind, and freedom of the senses, and freedom from the senses. The difference is, this difference we should keep in mind. So this control of mind is what is very essential in our life. We are finally coming to this idea. The subject for today's discussion is stress management, spiritual perspective. We are not saying that there will be no stress in life. You have to manage the stress. You cannot say, I will drive away the stress, because stress is inbuilt in life. But I can manage it in such a way that I am not overtly affected by it. I can, in the midst of all this, remain calm I can maintain certain amount of my inner state of equipoise. Samatvam yoga uchyate, says the Bhagavad Gita. Samatvam, a sense of, say, equanimity, that is the yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyate. How do I maintain that equanimity in the midst of all changing phenomena? That is the real issue before us. So we come to what is understanding a spiritual perspective of it. So what's spirituality? Or what is a spiritual perspective? Traditionally, in scriptures down a few thousand years of the Sanatana Dharma, we have tried to look at the word in let's say the whole word can be seen, all the problems and challenges and struggles that we have in our life. Our rishis, our deep thinkers and saints, whom we call rishis, they looked at the whole word in a very generalized way. They say we face so many problems. We all know we face so many problems. We face medical problems, we face financial problems, political problems, administrative problems. We have domestic problems, we have personal problems, we have emotional problems, all types of problems. This is one way of looking at the problems that we face which create stress in our life. There's another way, which is very ancient way of looking at how we look at these struggles and challenges. And that is looking upon the word, as our rishis called it, as problems in three categories, like adidaivika problems, adibhautika problems, and adhyatmika problems. So what is adidaivika? So we believed in that everything in this world is actually ruled over by the deva, the devata, or the bright being. The word devata means bright being. So all the phenomena of nature, let's say there is air, there is storm. Recently we had the Amphan. Then we have water, Varuna Devata. Then we have Agni Devata. Everything was seen as full of devatas. There is some struggle, some challenge that comes from the elements of nature. These elements of nature is decided over by the devata, and it is the first thing that we have to understand. This is the first struggle that we all have, that is with the elements of nature. So elements of nature, like we have a lot of natural calamities, be it earthquake, or be it a tsunami, or a storm, or a typhoon, or anything which comes from the elements of nature. This is one part of the adidaivika problem. But there is also problem of, let's say, heat, problem of cold, problem of so much of rain. So we have all tried to, this is the first level at which the humanity has worked to solve its problems. So we have developed science. We have made a lot of progress in technology to handle the challenges which come from the adidaivika level. So we have, for instance, developed the seismic meter to know when the earthquake is likely to come and what will be its intensity. Or we have the satellites which are put in the Earth orbit to know the exact weather which is likely to be seen. How exact weather we are able to tell. There is a lot of progress. In earlier days, so we have the problem of let's say, which comes from various things of life, various elements of life. That there is a strong wind or strong. It's very hot now, for instance, in the month of July, and it becomes terribly humid also. So we all have electric gadgets. They've all come to us by people trying to solve the problem over the centuries. In earlier days, it was only the hand fan. When Swami Vivekananda, you went around the country, he stayed in many houses. He stayed in huts also. He stayed in even rich people's place. Swamiji speaks of having stayed in a place where there was a hanging fan on the ceiling, which is tied to a fan means a kind of cloth. So it is tied to a rope which a person moves and you get some air. And a person perhaps is appointed to give air to Swamiji throughout night also. So that was the type of fan. And today we have fans of all types. We have the air conditioning. So there is a man has been trying to solve his problems at the level of challenges which comes from nature. That's called Adhidaivika level. Second is Adhibhautika level. First is Adhidaivika, second is Adhibhautika. The word Bhautika means that which is related to living beings. The word Bhuta means living beings. So it comes from the level of other living beings. It could be wild animals, it could be harmful creatures around us. Ambavya. So we have the issue of say there's a scorpion, there's a snake, or there is today we have even the virus. So that is all created. It is other than us. Other living beings are created for us. It is Adhibhautika problem, and you have a whole system we have been trying for centuries to check it, to discipline it. For instance, there's also problem created by other human beings. So we have a system of police, a system of military, and a system of municipal corporation, which says this is how the road should be. You have your freedom, but somebody else also his freedom. So both the freedoms should not clash. So let's find out some way to solve it. So we have been, as a human beings, we have been trying to solve the problem of Adhibhautika level. Then there's a third type of problem, which is what we are trying to speak here, and that is the Adhyatmika problem. Adhyatmika problems, or the challenges or struggles that we have, it means it is related to what is within us, which means it is not related to the elements of nature or other beings, but it is related to my own mindset, the way I look at the world, Say, for instance, in a given situation, as I just now quoted, the instance of a cockroach. So it was the response of the waiter which changed the situation. It is his Adhyatmika level. Somebody else's Adhyatmika level is weak, and his Adhyatmika level is better. So what is meant here is the type of influences that I have. In the Bhagavad Gita, the word Adhyatmika is also used to mean that which is the deepest dimension of our being. Deepest dimension. What is the deepest dimension of our being? It is the Atman. It is the divine or divinity that is present in us. When a person has reached that understanding, when he is able to understand his deepest core, then the way he looks at the world will be very different. We will, I think, dwell upon it a little more after some time. So let's say, let me summarize what I have spoken till now. Then we take up the next issue of how our scriptures, how the Patanjali Yoga Sutras and how the Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads look at the idea of stress and how do we manage the stress. That we'll take up later. Let me summarize the first thing, that is, there is stress in life and you can't help it. there is stress even as whatever level of life you are, whether you are a student or a parent or an employee or an employer or whatever role you play in the society or in life, there is certain amount of stress, and there is a necessary stress and there is unnecessary stress. The necessary stress is required in order to make something move, but unnecessary stress should be avoided. And how do we avoid is a challenge before us. There are deadlines and what other people will say kind of fear. There are money matters, very pressing money matters, financial issues. All these create their own stress on our life. Then there is a serenity prayer, which says, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. So anxiety is, it is there deep rooted in us, and we will have to understand its structure and our mindset, how it is, where the anxiety is born. The control of mind are the three types of challenges that we face in life. That is Adidevika, Adibhautika, and Adhyatmika. So we give it a pause here and we'll continue after a break.